How is it possible that a team like Ferrari with a champion at the wheel is so far from the podium? What the hell is going on with the SF25? Today we're going to uncover the whole truth behind the Italian team's disappointing performance at the 2025 Japanese Grand Prix. If you stay until the end, you'll discover not only what exactly is wrong with Hamilton's car, but also why even Leclerc, performing at his best, can't perform miracles. Let me know your thoughts in the comments now. Is this the beginning of the end for Ferrari this season? The 2025 Japanese Grand Prix was a real reality check for Ferrari. After a pre-season filled with expectations and a victory in the Chinese sprint race that seemed to mark a new beginning for Lewis Hamilton, the race at Suzuka revealed the opposite. A fragile structure, a compromised setup, and a star driver who, instead of celebrating podium finishes, is raising alarm bells. Visibly frustrated after the checkered flag, Lewis Hamilton revealed something that had been kept secret until then. His car has been suffering from a technical problem for at least 3 Grands Prix. But this is not a minor annoyance or an unimportant detail. We're talking about a faulty component that is costing him more than 1/10 of a second per lap, a figure that in Formula 1 can mean the difference between fighting for the podium or battling in the middle of the pack. In his own words, Hamilton was clear: "We found something in the car that has been performing below expectations for the last 3 races, so I really hope that when that's fixed, I'll start getting better results." This message is more than a simple complaint. It's a public statement that functions as a cry from an assistant disguised as a technical analysis. Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, doesn't usually expose the team in this way unless he's on the verge of despair. The gravity of his words intensifies when he adds that the problem has already been identified, but neither he nor the engineers understand why it occurred or how to fix it with certainty. In other words, Ferrari knows there is a fault, but doesn't know how to fix it with certainty. In a sport where every millimeter counts and every corner demands pinpoint precision, this lack of clarity is lethal. Most worrying is that this failure has not only compromised Hamilton's results but has also exposed the entire technical structure of the team. Because if this component has been affecting performance for several races and no one has been able to correct it, what does that say about Ferrari's level of preparation and responsiveness? The team has promised a specific update, a new component that should arrive in the upcoming races. But time is ticking. And in the meantime, points slip away, rivals drift away, and confidence erodes. All of this is happening in the context of a season that was supposed to be one of redemption. Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari wasn't just a sporting decision. It was a statement of intent to return to the top with an elite driver. However, after the first few races, the script seems to have gone awry. And Suzuka has been the stage where it has become clear that, far from being ready to fight for the title, Ferrari is in the midst of a technical crisis that threatens to sink its ambitions before it even reaches Europe. Hamilton was diplomatic in his words, but the message is clear: the car isn't up to scratch. And the most disturbing thing is that, for the first time in years, the British driver seems disconnected from the solution. He doesn't talk about "we're going to fix it," but rather, "I hope they fix it." This subtle difference in his discourse is the most striking indication that internal confidence is waning. And if Hamilton begins to hesitate, the entire Ferrari project could collapse much sooner than expected. The true epicenter of the technical crisis Ferrari is facing in 2025 isn't isolated results, nor even specific strategic errors. It lies in the car's architecture, in the fundamental decisions made during the design phase of the SF25. And it is here that an uncomfortable truth emerges for the Scuderia. They have built a car that is inherently limited by its height configuration and a suspension system that doesn't quite work as it should. This isn't a lack of driving talent, but a technical concept that, at its core, is compromising any chance of fighting for the championship. After the disaster at the Chinese Grand Prix, where both Ferraris were disqualified, Leclerc for being underweight and Hamilton for excessive floor wear, the team made a drastic decision, raising the car's ride height to protect the integrity of the floor. This choice, although understandable from a regulatory perspective, has had a devastating impact on performance. Because in Formula 1, running higher isn't simply about losing a little time. It's about sacrificing aerodynamic efficiency, cornering grip, and, ultimately, competitiveness. Suzuka is one of the most demanding circuits on the calendar, especially due to its fast corners and vertical load transitions that subject the car to constant stress. Under these conditions, a car that runs higher is literally unable to bite into the asphalt with the ferocity the track demands. And that's exactly what happened to the SF25. It lost support, lost stability, and became ineffective in fighting for front positions. But there's more. The SF25 suspension is also at the center of the storm. Ferrari opted for a pull rod design on the front axle, a configuration that, while offering theoretical aerodynamic advantages, poses enormous challenges mechanically and to the overall balance of the car. This design, also used by Haas, has proven to be a constant source of complications. According to technical analysis from specialized Italian media, the problem lies in poor management of rear suspension stiffness and a geometry of the wishbones that is severely limiting the car's ability to adapt to different types of track. The paradox is brutal. Ferrari is trapped in a dead-end loop. If it lowers the car's ride height to gain downforce, it risks suffering another episode like the one in China, with a damaged floor and consequent disqualification. If it keeps the ride height high to play it safe, it sacrifices performance and loses valuable points. This technical dilemma not only frustrates the drivers, but also reveals a lack of foresight in the car's design, which is now being paid for dearly. The car's design is not responding to what was expected in preseason simulations. In fact, during testing in Bahrain, Hamilton's car couldn't even complete a full race simulation, leaving engineers without key data on the car's behavior in real-life race conditions. This has forced Ferrari to make decisions in the dark, reacting rather than anticipating, and the result is a car that doesn't adapt to fast corners or high-load configurations. Ultimately, the SF25 isn't just suffering from fine-tuning details, it suffers from structural flaws in its design. And that's the most alarming aspect. Because when the problem is in the car's architecture, no single update or improvement can magically fix it. It requires profound re-engineering, a redesign of the concept, and, above all, time. Time that, in such a competitive season, Ferrari no longer has. Meanwhile, every lap on track with this car is a painful confirmation that the red dream remains, for now, a frustrated illusion. In any Formula One team, the driver's perception of the car acts as an emotional thermometer that allows them to measure the internal health of the team. In Ferrari's case, this season is exposing a deep rift, not only on a technical level but also psychologically. Most revealing is that Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, although facing exactly the same limitations of the SF25, are displaying attitudes and discourses that reflect two different ways of processing the same hell. Hamilton has been direct, methodical, but increasingly restless. He's not launching random criticisms or looking for individual culprits, but neither is he hiding his discontent. He has identified a specific problem, communicated it to the team, shared it publicly, and now waits for the engineers to find a solution. There's a kind of controlled urgency in his words, as if he knows he can't waste time on diplomacy. And rightly so. Because for a driver of his caliber, every race without a podium is a missed opportunity that can't be recovered. The fact that he revealed the deficit of more than a tenth per lap is no coincidence. It's a subtle but powerful message. A reminder to the world, and perhaps to Ferrari itself, that it's not the driver failing, it's the machine failing. Leclerc, on the other hand, is dealing with the situation from a different perspective, and his frustration is manifested in a different, more resigned, more introspective tone. After finishing fourth at Suzuka, he declared with devastating coldness, "There was nothing more to extract from the car. We executed well in terms of balance and strategy, but it's even more discouraging to perform perfectly and finish P4. The speed just isn't there." These words don't sound like criticism, they sound like exhaustion. Like the feeling of being trapped in a system that doesn't give him enough tools to compete. And the hardest thing is that Leclerc isn't complaining about a faulty component or pointing to a specific cause. What he's saying is even more serious, that even when everything is done right, the result is still mediocre. That, in Formula One, is the clearest symptom that the car is doomed to be second tier. This difference in approach between Hamilton and Leclerc may seem subtle, but it's key to understanding the climate within the team. While Hamilton maintains a proactive, almost demanding stance, like someone hoping the team will live up to his ambition, Leclerc seems to have reached a point of emotional fatigue. And no wonder. The Monegasque has dreamed of returning Ferrari to the top for years, and has seen each attempt thwarted by strategic errors, questionable decisions, and now by a car that simply doesn't respond. The contrast also reflects the trajectories of both drivers. Hamilton arrives with the authority of having been a 7-time world champion, with the mentality of someone who will settle for nothing less than victory. Leclerc, meanwhile, represents the driver who has grown within the team, who has defended the project even in its worst moments, but who today, silently, is crumbling internally. And that is extremely dangerous for Ferrari, because a talented and loyal driver who begins to lose faith can become a silent time bomb. The SF25 is not only failing as a racing machine, it is breaking the spirit of its drivers. And that's something no new component can fix. Because it's one thing to lose races due to technical errors. It's quite another to lose motivation. And what we saw at Suzuka is that both drivers, although they express it differently, are reaching the limits of their patience. The big question isn't whether Ferrari can improve the car. The big question is whether it will manage to do so before its two stars decide it's no longer worth waiting. Today we've seen the depths of one of Ferrari's most delicate moments in recent years. And no, this isn't just a negative streak, nor a couple of specific errors that can be corrected with minor tweaks. What we're seeing with the SF25 is a perfect storm combining flawed design, forced technical decisions, and a growing tension between what the drivers need and what the car can offer them. First of all, we saw how Hamilton, despite his experience and unquestionable talent, is limited by a technical problem that is robbing him of performance lap after lap. More than an obstacle, this failure has become an invisible trap that condemns them to competing at a disadvantage without an immediate solution. Meanwhile, the team continues to search for answers without a clear understanding of the exact cause of the problem. And that, in an environment as meticulous as Formula One, is unacceptable. Then we delve into the technical root of the disaster. The need to raise the car's ride height after the disqualifications in China has left Ferrari in a dead end. If they run lower, they break the rules. If they protect themselves, they lose pace. And amidst this contradiction, the pull rod suspension system has proven to be more of a complication than an advantage. The car's balance is compromised from its very structure, and the solutions seem more reactive than strategic. It's not just a difficult car to set up. It's a car that, from its conception, has not been designed to adapt to the dynamic challenges posed by such a tight season. Finally, and perhaps even more worrying, is the human aspect. The drivers are at their limit. Hamilton tries to maintain his composure, but his dissatisfaction and frustration are evident with every statement. Leclerc, on the other hand, conveys a quiet resignation that hits even harder. The problem is no longer just that the car isn't up to scratch. It's that even when everything is done perfectly, the expected result isn't achieved. And when maximum effort doesn't translate into success, motivation begins to erode. Ferrari needs to react. Not with vague promises or statements full of empty words, but with concrete actions. Because the championship doesn't wait. McLaren and Red Bull continue to add points, Mercedes is sharpening its weapons, and Aston Martin is beginning to show alarming speed. If Ferrari fails to reverse this situation in the coming days, the dream of seeing Hamilton crowned champion wearing red could remain just that, a dream that never came to fruition. Now it's your turn. Do you think Ferrari can turn this situation around, or are we witnessing the start of another lost season? Let me know in the comments. I want to know your opinion. And if this analysis helped you better understand what's happening in Maranello, subscribe and hit the bell.